Welcome to the Vision Driven Basketball Training Podcast. Appreciate you guys who are tuned in today listening. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever else you listen. And then everybody who's watching on YouTube right now. Everybody watching can see I've got a guest on today. My guy, Gabe Macias of Game Time Elite Training. One of the bigger accounts on Instagram when it comes to basketball training. And for me personally, very, very influential and one of the guys who I really think is doing things the right way. And someone that I learn a lot from, right? Probably one of my best follows, right? I don't follow a ton of people on my basketball stuff, but I'm seeing Gabe on there every single day. And it's always quality stuff. So, we had kind of actually, you guys who have listened, I believe it was my Q&A episode probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I had mentioned that Gabe posted something back in it was a while ago, probably March or April, just about kind of taking a step forward without necessarily knowing what the result's going to be, kind of betting on yourself a little bit. And I had a question that somebody asked me like, hey, what's the best advice you've gotten from a trainer or from a coach? And that was the first thing I thought of, because that's always kind of been, that's one area where I certainly needed that. And that message to me really, really did a lot. So again, that's why I say one of the better follows for me on Instagram. And I'm really excited to be able to kind of pick his brain a little bit today. And I know that he's going to bring a lot of value to you guys as well. So that's my intro. Gabe Macias. Gabe, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I appreciate you for having me on, man. It's honestly like one of the things that I love doing most, or one of the things I love most about training is building relationships with people and being able to influence and inspire people. And it's great, to actually meet some of those people, in person that follow me on social media. And that's awesome, man. I appreciate, you following me and supporting me. It's great. And I'm excited to talk today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So kind of just a little bit of a background on you. How did you get started as a trainer? What's kind of been your progression forward? You could even start with maybe how your playing days affected where you are now. I know for me, that's kind of something that I always go back to, but what's been your journey to the point you're at now?
Yeah. So, I've been playing basketball since I was about in 5th grade, and I was in love with the game, man. I'd always be out in the backyard, working myself out. And I was super motivated. My goal was to play college basketball and hopefully one day, go play professionally. And I would literally bust my butt every single day going, 2 to 3 workouts, pretty much 7 days a week, and as I started doing that, I had some people tell me like, yo, you might need to, relax a little bit. I know that you're trying to get better, but that's a lot on your body and blah, blah, I never really listened. But I was always trying to work out kids on my team, some of my teammates and my friends. We would always be working out in the backyard. I'd train them, they trained with me, and put them through some workouts and stuff. But as I got into high school, my freshman year, I ended up dislocating my kneecap right before the season started. And so it took a big hit on me. I was on varsity and I was expecting to start, but then that happened right before season. So it sidelined me for a while. I ended up coming back. I only played 10 games my freshman year, didn't play too much. Come back my sophomore year on varsity, played a lot. It was one of my better high school seasons, played really well. Then I get into my junior year. Right before junior year happens, I end up dislocating my kneecap again. So it sidelined me for a little while again. So junior season went on, I had actually another good season. And then going into my senior year, I had a couple, D3 offers and a couple NAIA offers. I was really excited for my senior year. And then a little bit into the season, I ended up spraining my ACL. And so it sidelined me for a little while longer. And the doctor told me probably about gonna need at least 2 months, month and a half of recovery time. And I started honestly feeling good about after a month. And I said, fuck it, excuse me. Sorry, excuse my language.
You're good. Cool, you're good. Yeah, no, don't worry about it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, you're good.
So I said, screw it, I'm gonna just come back. I'm feeling good. And I probably, I did, come back way too soon. And I ended up playing maybe 5 more games before I again ended up dislocating my kneecap and then fracturing my tibia. So it pretty much sidelined me for the rest of my senior season. And all the schools that were talking to me, it was mostly D3s, had a couple NAIs, but the D3s, they don't offer you athletic scholarships, and you're not able to redshirt there, so they pretty much pulled it, and they probably said, just go JUCO. We'll keep an eye on you and whatnot. And so I ended up going JUCO, and had a redshirt my freshman year, and just to get healthy from the previous injury my senior year. And then started, practicing with the team again, started moving, getting ready to play the next upcoming season. And in the summer before the next season, I ended up tearing my meniscus. So that, again, sidelined me for some time. And I was really just thinking about it, man, like just all the battles and how hard it is to recover and come back to full strength. And at the JUCO level is no joke. A lot of people think it's the easiest level of college basketball. It is definitely not. There was a lot of grown men on my team, dudes I was 18 years old coming in. Dudes were 24, 25, 26.
Oh yeah.
D1 kickbacks, so it was legit, man. And I was just looking at it like, damn, man, like it's going to take me a long time. I'm probably going to sit out the whole next season, and I'm going to be, 2 years into college, and I'm barely going to be playing my first season. And I was like, I don't know if I really want to do that. And at the time, actually, kind of running it back a little bit, my junior year of high school, my dad was running a little a club program, and he asked me to help out, so I'd help him out, coach him and help him out and coach and whatnot. And a few kids, asked me to train them, and so I started off training a couple kids. They were getting better. They were telling their friends and whatnot. And I had a few more kids, come up to me. And so I had a little group of like maybe 5, 6 kids that I was training throughout high school. And so I was training them, helping my dad coach and whatnot. And once, I ended up getting hurt in college, I was like, you know what, I'm going to just really try to dive into this. I love this. I was really inspired at the time by Devin in the lab.
Oh, yeah.
So I was super inspired by him, and I was like, you know what, dude, he's a great trainer. He does this, full time, and I want to, maybe pursue this one day. So I decided to dive in heavily after I was done playing and dive in heavily into that and start training more kids. And so as I started doing it, more and more kids came, and that's pretty much, how I got started.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's funny you mentioned the JUCO, because I remember when I was so my year, I took without going too far into it, my senior year of high school had a couple of Division III offers. Ended up like some stuff went crazy in like July before my freshman year, so I ended up not going to any of those schools, just taking the year off and just training still. And then that next year, there was a couple of JUCOs that I visited. And I remember there was one of them, and like there was like 3 dudes on the team who were like 27, 28 years old. I was like, yeah, this is it. We are not in high school anymore. Yeah. And it's just, I think you're 100% right. Like people don't understand like how can, even at the Division III level too, like these guys, like they recruit, like they have a board of guys that they want, and they've got a list of a lot of dudes, and they'll cut you off that list so quick and replace you with 5 other dudes. And that's something that I saw personally. So I think that's definitely something that I thought of. But, I think, it probably would be hard to imagine more adversity that you had to go through as a youth player, like even, back when you're 14, 15 as a freshman in high school, and building that to, man, all the way through your college years. So what, like, because I always say, my goal is to play college basketball as well. And, ended up not happening, but I look at the lessons I learned along the way, and how that affects me now with what I'm doing with my training. And like, I don't regret a single thing about it because of where I'm at now and everything I know now. So what are some of the lessons that you kind of, you took from that? And how does that affect you kind of to this day, even if it's like just relating to players who are going through stuff, and you're able to say, hey, listen, man, when I was your age, I was in this situation as well. So you kind of have that little bit of a connection there too.
Yeah. So there's a couple things I want to touch up on. So I mentioned it earlier, how, people would tell me when I was working out, in middle school through high school, I was going super hard 2 to 3 times a day, and they told me to relax, and maybe chill out. I look back on that now, and I'm like, yeah, I definitely probably should have, because I didn't really take care of my body, to be honest. I lifted a little bit, but it was the minimum 2 days a week, 3 days a week. But it was mostly just basketball, just going hard as hell, just pounding my knees and not really recovering properly. And I think, that played part in me, getting injured a lot, is because I never had the proper recovery. And I try to tell all my athletes now that I work with, to really take care of your body. Because I've seen one of the kids I'm actually working with right now, he's going through almost like a burnout. He's been going hard. In California, the high school season got pushed back to March. So it was March all the way to June. And me and this kid were working out. He had practice, and he was always trying to tell me, like, yo, coach, like, I'm trying to get in the gym today. Like, let's work out. Like, you try to come to the group workouts, and I would be like, no, dude, like, you're in season right now too. You don't need to be going this hard. And he'd still just end up at the workouts, just still showing up. And I just told him to take it easy and whatnot, but he was, just still trying to go hard. And after season ended, he still wanted to, to go hard. And I was like, no, man, like, we gotta rest for a little while. You have a big, senior season coming up. And he ended up going through a little bit of burnout, and he wasn't able to give his, maximum effort through the first half of the summer. So we pretty much just shut it down for the past month and a half, and whatnot. But it's very important to take care of your body, because it could lead to injuries, it could lead to burnout, and that's something that you don't want to experience. That's something I went through, and so I definitely recommend listening to people who are telling you, just to relax a little bit. Because I know a lot of people are preaching, ball is life, grind 24/7, all this, and that. But yes, you can still grind 24/7. Ball is still life, with taking rest days, with taking care of your body. It doesn't have to be on the court 24/7. You could go 4 days a week, and then take it lighter 3 days a week, have a couple rest days and whatnot. But that's one piece, of advice that I definitely give to hoopers, because I see a lot of kids that are really putting a lot of miles on their body. And it ends up, being detrimental in the long run. But, another piece of advice is to never quit, man. You're going to go through some rough patches in life, whether it's basketball or, any other situations in life. And me personally, I went through, a lot of adversity with those knee injuries. And I just never quit when it came to that, man. Even though I was like, why me? Screw this. I have to pretty much start back from zero. I just kept pushing, and I never quit. And I guess you could say at one point, I guess I did decide to step down, and I came into the training world. But even when I got into the training world, man, stuff got, tough. There was times where I wasn't making any money, almost, making no money. And I still kept pushing through it. There was times where I told myself I was going to quit, even when I was hooping. I told myself I was going to quit too. But I never did. I just kept pushing through it. And that's what happens. A lot of people aren't able to reach success because they quit before it even happens. And that's one thing I try to tell all the kids I work with. People are motivated. They go hard at and try to reach their goals, but they don't get to those goals because they quit right before they even happen. And so I want to tell, anybody who's listening to this, man, just no matter what your situation is, keep pushing, because it's not a perfect world. All the stuff you see on social media, everything you see on TV and all that, it's not perfect. It's not like the movies. There's going to be rough patches, and you got to figure out how to get through those rough patches. And, at the end of the day, once you push through those rough patches, there's always going to be, a light at the end, So that's what I can say, for that.
Yeah. No, man, there's a lot of great stuff right there. I think kind of to your last point right there, like that's one thing that I try and tell players, and like, even I've said it a couple of times on the podcast, like, it's so much bigger than basketball, right? And the lessons that you learn through basketball, because for everybody, like, the ball stops bouncing at some point. And for some, it's earlier than others, right? The goal is to, be a 20-year NBA vet, but obviously that's 0.00001% of players out there. So the 99+%, like, the ball is going to stop bouncing earlier than that. So it's really so much about the lessons that you gain and the habits that you build through basketball, right? So if you're used to having to stay committed to a goal, you have a goal that you set for yourself. Okay, I want to do this next season. Okay, by the time I'm a senior, I want to win this. I want to do this. Like, I want to make it to this level. And you every day are able to get up and say, okay, I need to get this done today so I can move towards this goal. You're able to stick to that repeatedly for a long time. Like, that translates to literally anything else that you'll do. So now the next goal that you set when basketball's over, you want to start this business, you want to try and climb to this position at this job, you want to do this, do that. Like, you've built those habits and that foundation to actually be somebody who can accomplish those things, right? So I think that like that to me is like a lesson that I just try and instill with the players I work with. Is like, okay, can we build great habits when we work out, when we practice? Can we be committed to it? Because whether or not basketball, works out ultimately at the end of the day, anything that you go to after that, you're going to succeed in that because you've already made yourself into a person who knows how to progress forward. And I think that's something that a lot of kids don't learn how to do. And if you don't learn how to do that, then you're kind of stuck at the mercy of just your circumstances in life. So do you get lucky? You get born into a situation where, maybe you've got a really rich family who can set you up with a great job. Again, that's, not 99% of people aren't in that position. So building those habits early, I think is so big. And kind of to pivot to your first point of, hard work, right? And I think that it's always been like, just like you said, like ball is life. Oh yeah, I'm grinding all day. And the amount of messages I get from players where they'll be like, yeah, listen, coach, I work out for 6 hours a day and, I'm not seeing much progress. I don't know what to do. Should I start working out for 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day? And for every one of those, I'll get another message that says, hey, coach, I work out for like 6 hours a day. And, I'm having all these ankle problems, all these knee problems, and I don't know what to do. And it's like, that to me is where like there's a disconnect, right? I think that like one thing that I constantly want to preach is like, it's not about the time you spend in the gym. Like you can go to the gym and shoot 500 shots, and that can be so much less effective than maybe another player going to the gym and shooting 150, because maybe those 150 are all game like. Maybe they're contested, maybe they're working on something specific. And so now the transfer of that workout compared to, that 500 shot workout where you kind of just stood there and, shot shots over and over again, like it's not the same thing. So I think the biggest thing, like for a lot of players, is you have to stop trying to like compare yourself to everybody else. Cause it's like what you said, like you go on social media and you see all these, accounts on Instagram or on TikTok talking about, oh yeah, I work so hard. I work everybody to do all this stuff. And then I feel like everybody wants to compete and compare themselves and say, oh, well, actually, I work out for this long, or I shoot this many shots per day. When at the end of the day, it's really just about like, are you moving closer to your goal? Are you getting better? And how quickly are you getting better? And are you doing it in kind of a smart way? Like that to me is such a major part of what I want to do and the message that I want to spread on social media. So I don't know if you have anything to add to any of those points.
No, I mean, I think I pretty much touched up on it, and I think you did a good job of touching up on it. It's not always grind. You just got to figure out ways to implement, recovery, implement some rest, and different sorts of things like that. I know a lot of people see it just on social media. Everyone's always grinding. It looks like everyone's always grinding. It looks like people are in the gym all day long. Actually, I coach a club program. And we had practice the other day on Tuesday, but I had a little private session before that, like 2 hours before. And one of my players was already in the gym, and he was already building up a full sweat. And I was like, oh, how long you been in here for? He said, oh, I've already been in here for an hour and a half. And I was like, oh, you're going to go home before practice? He said, no, coach, I'm working out till practice. And I was like, dude, that's 12 to 5. And he was like, yeah, coach, I'm in here all day. And I was like, I tried to tell him, I was like, how often do you do this? He's like, oh, I do this every day. And I was like, dang, man. I was like, you ever get tired? He says, yeah, like during practice, sometimes my body's not able to give it all, and I'm not able to do everything I want to do. And I was like, man, sometimes you just got to relax. And I was trying to preach that to him and get that through to him, because like I said, it could be detrimental in the long run for sure. You might think it's working now, or you might feel like you need to work out more, but you kind of just have to look at how you're structuring your workouts, what you're doing in those workouts, and figure out how to make it translate a little bit better.
Yeah, no doubt. So kind of pivoting to, you and your approach as a trainer now. So what is your, like, how do you approach player development, in terms of you like figuring out like what do you work on with your players? How do you actually go about working on that? How do you go about improving someone's shooting or somebody's ball handling or somebody's decision making or finishing, or whatever it may be? Like, what's your philosophy, your approach to training your players?
Yeah, so I pretty much just work in like groups. I have like a year-round academy that I do, and so I'm just running that pretty much, and it's mostly groups. Every maybe once or twice a month I'll have like a private session. But for the most part, I kind of just look at what the players need. And, some days I'll go based on what a few players need. Some weeks I'll just kind of just make up a workout, on my own. But what I'll do is, like this past week, I was noticing a lot of players were struggling, with finishing versus help side. So I came up with a workout focused specifically on that, and the way I set up my workouts is like almost like not every time, but majority of the time I do like the play drill play style. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
Yeah.
just to kind of explain it just for a quick second for anybody that's listening that might not understand is I start off with like a small sided game. So just kind of going live in a situation where players got to finish versus help, get that going for 5 to 10 minutes. And then I'll get into some sort of drill. So like, that's exactly what I did yesterday. I had players going live against each other to start, finishing versus help side. And then I gave them like 4 finishes that they can use versus help side. And so I'll rep those out for a few minutes of each finish. And then we'll get right back into kind of just implementing those versus live defenders and stuff in small-sided games. And what I kind of do is if players implement the finish that we work on, I'll give them, extra points. So we'll play to a certain amount maybe, or go for a certain time limit. And if players, like one of the finishes I worked on yesterday was like a slide by. So if they finish with a slide by, +2. If they finish with maybe one of the other 3 finishes that I gave them, +2. If it's a different finish, then it's only 1 point, And so then you kind of see players starting to implement those, because they want to win and they're trying to experiment and figure out when those finishes work, when they don't work. And that's how you kind of get players to translate skills, into the game. And other times, other workouts, I might just start, with the ball handling warm up. And I like to do a lot of like, now I used to give players like tell them exactly what to do. And every now and then, maybe we will do a couple of things where I tell them exactly, what, movement I want them to do. But then there'll be other times where I do like a lot of freestyle stuff. I've been seeing, I'm sure, I know you follow like Coleman, by any means basketball and Tyler, TJL, and I've been getting inspired by a lot of, their stuff, how they do a lot of freestyle stuff. And they also, implement ball handling, with a live defender. So that's pretty much, I'll start it with either, a live drill, or we'll kind of do like a little ball handling warm up to get started.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a lot of how I approach it as well, is like, okay, so let's put players in situations where like they kind of have to figure it out. And that's why like the play drill play method, like to me, it's awesome because you start off with just, first of all, we're competing at something. So immediately, like off the bat, it's just way more fun. And like the energy's going and like everybody wants to win, everybody's competing. And so it goes from like, because I remember when I was growing up, like it always seemed like workouts were like, they're workouts, right? You were always ready for the game because you got to play, but workouts were always like, it was boring a lot of times because we're just like, we're just drilling. And maybe the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes, we'll get to play or compete or do something. And I think that not only is it more fun for players to be able to have, be able to compete throughout the entire workout, but like you said, like the game transfer it's just so much better. And that was one thing that like, for me growing up, I didn't realize that. And that's something that we'll have to touch on too, is like going from, playing like you kind of your approach as a player, but then how that changed and how you kind of evolved as a trainer, as well as, okay, well, maybe the stuff that I did when I was playing, maybe that's actually not the best way or the most efficient way of getting better at this. That was something that I've grown a lot in the last probably 6-8 months from that. And like you said, those guys, Coleman, Tyler, like a lot of it is stuff that they post and the points that they make. But like that to me is such a big thing. It's like, I think my goal is like, okay, I want you to be able to be more effective in a game situation, right? Because we can go throughout a workout and we can just shoot stationary shots all day, and you're going to become a better shooter in that situation. Like I can probably see a progression of your shooting from like the time we start to the end of the workout, however long that workout may be. You're probably going to look a little bit better, and then if we do that every day, you're going to get gradually better every single day. But then when the game comes, and now you've got a defender who's closing out to you. You got a defender who's forcing you to do something else. You've got to move a little bit faster because there's somebody chasing you around a screen. Like, can you still be effective in those sorts of situations? I was just texting. So I coach a high school team. I was just talking to our varsity coach today because we were watching. He sent me a clip from the USA Slovenia game from yesterday. And Slovenia hit a big three at the end with like 30 seconds left, and just it was coming off of a screen, and he was like backpedaling into it. He caught it, hand in his face, like as contested as it comes, and he knocked, like it was a must-have shot down 4, and he knocked it down. And so we got to just talking about like everything that goes into hitting shots in a game situation. And I was looking at like just the numbers behind it, and it, although like at the college level on the men's side, it's like something like 57% of made threes on average are contested or guarded shots. So now we have a way that like, okay, you know, when I have groups of players and we're going to shoot the ball, it's probably more effective that we work on some contested shooting, because when you get to a game, you're going to see those sorts of looks. Like you're going to have to make those sorts of shots, especially for any of my guys who are playing college. Like half your shots are going to be contested. That's just how it's going to be. And so can you still be effective in those sorts of situations? I think that's where there's been a disconnect, where it's like, okay, we just go to the gym and shoot 500 shots. And if you do that every day, you'll be a great shooter. Well, not necessarily, because there's just different aspects of it. So that's why like working with groups to me is like the best way to do it, because you're able to simulate more of that stuff as well. But kind of to the point that I had brought up, like how has your progression been from like, okay, you know, when you were a player and you did stuff that, you know, whatever your workouts looked like when you were in middle school, high school, into college even. And because I'd assume like, was a lot of that like you training yourself?
Yeah, so I did train myself a lot, and then I also had a couple trainers that I worked with, and it's way different, like 100 times different, man. Like it was when I would work out trainers, it's always, you know, going through cones, you know, making a bunch of moves at each cone, you know, and then there would be times where they would teach us moves and stuff, but it'd all be on air. You know, there's no decision making, there's no defender, and they kind of explain, you know, when to use it, but we would never get to actually experience it versus a real, you know, defender. And then that's even, you know, when I first started training, I kind of just used that stuff too, you know, probably up until about a year, 2 years ago, I'd say. Like completely changed the way like I was training. You know, I would always do cones. I'd always, you know, teach like little breakdowns of certain moves. I'd teach a bunch of different moves. And some kids would get better, you know, and some kids would really just struggle with it. And I would say about 2 years ago is when I first kind of got introduced into like small-sided games. Instead of just like checking the ball up and playing one-on-one, you know, we would do small-sided games. So I found, I don't know if you're familiar with Yorick. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's
Okay.
He's a trainer out in, I want to say Belgium, but he would do like a lot of small-sided games. And I first saw that, and that's when I first started kind of doing small-sided games. And so the way I would train is I would teach kids a specific movement or maybe move, but then I'd put them into a small-sided game where they'd have to use it. But I would say like my workouts would go for an hour, 40 minutes would be on air stuff. And then maybe like the last 20 minutes we do small-sided games. And I did that up until about probably like a year ago. And then this past year, I've pretty much past maybe 6 months, I've completely changed it, you know, and gone into that play drill play style, or gone more into like kind of letting players just like freestyle, almost. And honestly, I changed the way I train probably every couple of months. I'm finding something new, finding a new type of style and kind of implementing it. But yeah, I don't really do, you know, that cone stuff anymore. I play a lot, you know, there's a lot of live stuff in my workouts now. It's not just the last, like if you said 5 minutes, like that's what I was doing when I was training with, you know, trainers. The last 5 minutes, if we were lucky, you know, they let us play, you know, so that's how pretty much I've changed.
Yeah. I think like my goal at this point, like whenever I'm training And it's like what you said, like I change up how I do things. I change up my views on things like every couple months. Like that's just, and I think that's how it should be. Like I think if you're really trying to get better at it, like you're gonna be like, oh, I was wrong about that. Oh, I could have done that a lot better. And that's constantly where I try to be at every couple months. And that's my goal. Is like I could look back, a year from now and be like, wow, I didn't know anything a year ago. That's where I want to be at. But I think the biggest thing is like I want to like I want to build players who can just figure it out, right? And that's something where like coaching, like on my high school team, and like I coach with an AAU team as well, and like really that's the difference between players who succeed and ones who don't. It's not always like who's got better moves or even like who's more skilled. A lot of times, it's just like you might have one player who can be in a situation and one thing can go wrong and they're done. Like they're not gonna be able to overcome that, right? They come off of a ball screen and somebody they blitz the ball screen. Like if like they don't know what to do. And then you'll have other players who just, for whatever reason, whether it be just naturally it's how they are or because they've trained for it, they're able to kind of overcome and adapt to those things that might go wrong, right? So, a play gets run and maybe there's an additional help defender who steps up a little bit early. So, they know, okay, I can get into a pull up right here. Meanwhile, other players would just be like, okay, well, the defender's there. I can't do anything. They're going to pick the ball up. And so for me, it's like I'm always trying to put my players in situations where they can just kind of learn and build those instincts when it comes to just figuring it out, adapting to things. Like I used to be like, just like what you're saying, okay, we got to step here and then you got to do this move. You're going to dribble it right here. And now it's literally just like, I honestly am at a point where I'm like, listen, you can do it wrong. If you do it wrong, that's fine. Just keep going because you're going to do it wrong in a game. So when you do inevitably do it wrong, what's next? Like, can you still make something out of that? And really, like that's why I think live play is so important, is because it not only builds those skills, shooting, ball handling, finishing, whatever it may be, but it also builds that mindset of just being able to figure it out, being able to adapt to different things. So that's kind of where I'm at as well with that. So kind of going with that, we're kind of talking about groups. What would be your advice for players? Because I know for me, like a lot of players listening work out by themselves, at least the majority of the time. I think that's probably most players, right? Maybe they work out with a trainer, but maybe the other 4 or 5 days a week, they're out by themselves. So like, what do you have in terms of like, if you're going to be by yourself, what would be the best way to kind of go about getting better?
Yeah. When you're by yourself, I'd say try to add some pressure, I guess. And what I mean by that is, say you're doing a shooting drill, maybe you say you got to go 5 for 7 or you start over. You got to make 10 without missing 2 in a row, or you got to start over. So you're adding some pressure. Another thing you could do is maybe you are doing a shooting drill and you shoot the ball, but instead of going back to that same spot or doing that same movement, you can't shoot the same shot 2 times in a row. So you grab the ball at the net, maybe you just throw it somewhere else on the floor, and now you got to get into a different footwork, a different situation off of that. I would say, you can rep stuff out, put some pressure on yourself, like I said, but then also, add some variability. So when you're maybe doing some ball handling, actually, I learned this one from Mastery Hoops, which is Coleman and Tyler's platform. They have this ball handling drill. I forgot what they call it, but pretty much you give yourself 3 moves. So you say cross behind or something. When you're doing, you maybe go to half court and back or something, but when you're doing it, you cannot do the same pace, the same pattern 2 times, all the way up until half court. So you're trying to add some, variability. You're changing up your pace, you're changing up your rhythm. And that way you have to adjust and get creative, and it's getting that creative state thinking and being able to adapt and adjust. Just kind of how we were talking about. That's what I would pretty much, say when you're by yourself. Add some pressure, add some, variability. And, once you get, because I know a lot of people like to rep out moves, once you get comfortable with the move, figure out how you can, maybe you're doing, I don't know, between the legs cross. Say when you do between the legs cross, you can't do the same shot 2 times in a row, or you give yourself 2 dribbles to score after you make the move, and it has to be a different shot every time after the 2 dribbles or whatever the heck it is. Just figure ways to get yourself to be creative.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Creativity, variability. I love it. Like that's definitely when you're by yourself, just working those two things into what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely the best way to go about it. So I think a big thing, and I kind of touched on this, but when we talk about, we want our players to constantly be striving to get better, okay, and constantly being, wanting to work hard and being willing to work hard and being committed and getting better every workout every day. So obviously, I think for us as trainers, as coaches, like I think that same responsibility has to fall on us as well. Like we've got to continue to get better every single day. We've got to get better every week, every month. We've got to continue to progress forward. Like we shouldn't be in the same spot right now as we are in 6 months. It's like we would hope our players wouldn't be either. So, from your perspective and with your experience, what have been like, how have you progressed? Like what resources have you used? Like, maybe books that you read, or maybe it's just maybe it's through experience. Maybe, I mean, obviously that's a part of it, but like, what are your tips for developing yourself as a trainer or as a coach? And what else, like what could you give to guys who are trying to progress themselves forward as well?
Honestly, the biggest resource that I've been using is Mastery Hoops. If you guys aren't familiar with that, I kind of mentioned it a couple times before, but it's just not a podcast. It's a platform for trainers, and they have a players platform too. But it's I have the coaches one where it's for coaches and trainers, and learning how to just grow and better your craft as a trainer. They give you a bunch of resources. They give you, drills, podcasts to look up, but I'm on there like weekly, trying to learn and adapt and grow myself, and I also study like a lot of other trainers, so I mentioned another good one is Yorik. He's the dude that I would mention that's in Belgium. There's another dude, can't even think of his name, but I watch your stuff as well. Just to see how you're operating and see what, other trainers are operating. I take a little bit of everyone's stuff, and create my own style. I would say that's probably the biggest thing I do. I read a couple books. Forgot the dude's name. I want to say his name is Brian McCormick. He made like this basketball book. I forgot exactly what it's called, but it's pretty much going over how to train and coach players. And it talks a lot about, variability, creativeness, putting them in game situations where there's defenders and stuff. I read that. I've read it a couple of times actually. Those are, a few things, I'm doing to really better my game. And actually, there's a podcast called Basketball Immersion. That's like Chris Oliver. I think he's the host, and he does a phenomenal job of bringing in, other coaches who are like-minded, and, they share their philosophies on how they handle player development and how they handle, just coaching in general. That's been a great resource for me too. But those are some things, that I'm doing to enhance myself, as a trainer.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned basketball immersion, because that was one thing that I was going to bring up. I don't know if you've heard Chris talk about BDT or basketball decision training at all. Yeah. So like, that's something that I recently, probably like 3-4 months ago, started getting into that a little bit. So literally, like anytime I'm doing like a one-on-one session, because there's limits to the amount of defense we can play with that. So like being able to add in just BDT cues and stuff like that is just a complete game changer in terms of like keeping players out of being on autopilot when they're working out by themselves. Now they have to think about, okay, are his hands up? Am I shooting the ball here? Am I driving here? Okay, what's like that? And that to me is just like, it's genius. Like it's phenomenal. So yeah, Chris Oliver's stuff, Basketball Immersion, like the podcast is great as well. I'm the same boat. Mastery Hoops, I'm on there like probably every other day at least. And whether it's like looking at the drills and stuff like that, or the resources that it comes with as well, any of the modules and stuff like that, like there's just so much stuff on there. Like for sure recommend it to any trainers listening. Like I think it's one of the best investments you can make in yourself as a trainer, and for sure that's going to come back to you like tenfold. And at least for me it has. So that's the biggest thing. But the other thing is like what you said, taking from those, like I'll watch your stuff. I'll watch just stuff that I find on Instagram. And I think that you can get to a point where you can start to come up with stuff a little bit more on the fly, like throughout workouts. And it's like, okay, maybe we're working on attacking a closeout on the wing. And then, maybe that's going on, that you see something else happening. You see them struggling to finish because of this. And now, you think back to something that you saw. I saw Gabe post about this the other day. So, okay, now we can add this into it. That's going to help them in this regard as well. Or I saw, Master Who's posted something about this sort of thing. And like that would just kind of snap into your mind as you're working out. So it's like you're able to kind of, like we want our players to be adaptable, and like we can be adaptable as well when we see stuff start to pop up. I think that like that's one thing that I've gained a lot just from, constantly trying to learn from others and get better watching other stuff as well. But no, that's awesome. And so I think, kind of the next thing I wanted to ask you is, when it comes to building, because you work with a lot of players, I see a lot of different players on your Instagram and all this. So how do you build relationships with players? What is like, how important is that to you and to, your approach coaching? Because I think some coaches, like the relationship they have with players is not only like a byproduct of working with them, but it's actually a part of them developing, is like the buy-in that they have from those players. So what's kind of your approach with that?
Yeah, honestly, building relationships is one of the coolest things, about, training. I always, try to learn a little bit about each player I work with. Every time a player that I work with walks in the gym, or maybe I see them at the gym, getting some extra work in, I always, make it a habit to go out to them, talk to them a little bit, not even just about basketball. It can be about anything. There's a few kids that I train, that I coach, that are huge fans of Marvel and huge fans of Star Wars. And I'm a huge nerd about that stuff too. So I always find myself, talking to them about that stuff. It's not always about basketball. And I feel like even when I do go out to them, I talk to them about family, talk to them about what shows they're watching, whatever the heck it is, they start to trust me a little bit more, and buy into the process. And you find them even going even harder for you, when they are working out. But I honestly just think that's the coolest thing, is building relationships with players. It doesn't have to be strictly just basketball. It can be, other parts of life. But like I said, I make it a point to go out to every player that I work with, say what's up to them, talk to them for a second. I try to get to the gym, 10, 15 minutes early, just so I can have these conversations with players, have these conversations with parents, talk to the parents a little bit too. And it's not always about basketball, it's about, different parts of life.
Yeah. That's like something that I've been reading recently. It's called, I want to say it's Never Lose a Customer Again. I just started getting into that. Yeah. Yo, you got it. You got it. Yes, sir. Yeah. So I literally just got into it like 2 days ago. And like kind of the first point that they were making is like, you have to, like, if you want to gain loyalty, like it's really about like separating yourself and like really showing how much you actually care about, the customer after the initial sale. Right. And kind of put that into training perspective. It's like, okay, so, you're out and maybe through word of mouth or whatever, like you get like someone else interested in training with you. If you look at it like, okay, they're here, they're training, like my job's done, like I have a client, like that's not going to be sustainable for you long term. So it's really about like, how do I go above and beyond? So, for me, sometimes it's like, we'll have an hour workout, but like if I don't have anything to do immediately after, maybe we'll go a little bit longer than we might normally. So it's like kind of we're going a little bit above and beyond, but then like it's kind of like what you said too. It's like it's not just about the basketball. It's also about like, okay, do I actually know this kid that I'm working with? Like, what do they like doing outside of basketball? Right? Like, where are they going? Like, are they going to play a tournament this weekend? Do I ask them about their tournaments? And the other thing is like, when I get a chance to, like, I'll watch my players play in their tournaments, and that's like, during the season when I'm not coaching my own team, like I'll be at games and I want them to know that like, it's not just about like, the hour that I'm with them, but it's also like, okay, I'm watching what you're doing when you go and play, so that, when you come back to work with me, like I already know what happened. I know what you struggled with in that game. Like I know what you did well in that game. So I think that builds some more trust as well. And I think that kind of separates you. And now, from both the player's perspective, but the parents' perspective, it's like, okay, well, seems like he actually cares about, the well-being of, of my kid. And so then to me, like, that's where you really start to build that loyalty and that trust and the buy-in. And then ultimately that's where the results come from. So that's a major thing. And kind of the last thing I wanted to ask you about, just from a training perspective, when it comes to, how you've built up your business to this point, how you've established yourself and established your credibility, whether that be locally or online as well. And then just tips for kind of reaching your goals, for trainers out there or for people who even are just looking to do something with their own business, whatever it may be.
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing that I learned and how to grow your business and continue to build it and bring in new clients or keep clients is making it an actual business. I talked to a lot of trainers who are still taking just cash for payments or are still just taking Venmo or Cash App, and I always try to tell them, man, like you if you want to make it sustainable and you want to continue to grow, and I know a lot of people are trying to do this full time, you got to get away from that. Like you got to, no cash, no checks, no Venmo, no Cash App. Like you got to make it real, So what I did is I created, so I use like Square right now and Stripe and I don't know if you ever heard of like Acuity.
Mm-hmm.
So I use, those platforms and everything, like all my academies, they're all like a monthly reoccurring membership, so I'm not gonna, there'll be every now and then if a player, is going to be on vacation, so they only can drop in for the month, they'll come in and they'll pay the drop-in price, but I make the drop-in price, a little bit more than the membership. I have and another thing, actually, I'll touch up on this real quick, is I've been learning more ways to add value, to not just only, you're not only just going to get training with me, you're not only going to come once a week with me, you'll get your once a week session with me, but I also have been giving players an accountability journal, so every session, after every session, players will write down exactly what they learned that day. A lot of players go home after they work out or after practice and they forget, what the heck they did, in a couple of days, they'll forget it. So every week or every session, players will write down what they learned. And then they also have to self-analyze themselves throughout the workout. So what did they do well and what did they struggle with? They'll write those things down in their journal. Could be one thing, it could be three things, whatever. They'll write down each category, their strengths, weaknesses. And then based on what they wrote down, they have to come up with some homework that they need to do to improve those weaknesses and then keep on sharpening those strengths. And so they'll come up with that. And then I also give them access to my online training program. So everyone that, works with me gets access to online training, and I also assign them homework through that. And what I've been doing recently is giving them stuff for confidence. So, I'm reading this other book right now. It's called 254 Confidence. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's by Evan Carmichael, but it's pretty much 254 pages and you read one page a day. And it, it's pretty much just tips on confidence, how to build confidence. And then it gives you a challenge on, or like something to do that day to build your confidence. And so I'll take little screenshots of that. I'll put that in my online training and let players, use that. And then I'll also, put podcasts on there for players to listen to. But I'm giving them more than basketball. They're able to not only become good basketball players, but they're able to, grow into young men, young women, and build confidence in basketball, and build confidence in themselves, So that's something I added as well. So it's not only, just basketball, you're getting more than that. But going back to what I was talking about before, is, you have to make a reoccurring, type of payment. It could be weekly, it could be monthly, whatever the heck it is, 3 months, every 6 months, just so you know exactly how much, money you're bringing in. Because a lot of dudes who are taking cash or taking in, whatever the heck it is, a player could pay for a group session one week and then not come back the next week. Or, I know coaches who do online packages. So the kids will pay for a package of 4, which is good, but then, they pay for 1 month, they don't come back the next month, And so when you're setting this stuff up, you also, have to make a very, concise and firm terms and conditions, write down everything that you're expecting and how you want to run your business and what happens in this situation or that situation. So before players or parents are registering, they're able to read those terms and conditions and understand, how you operate. And I've learned that parents that are paying, they love that even more. They love not having to log into or pay you Venmo, every Wednesday, they just comes out of their account, every 6th of the month, whenever the heck they signed up. They love that more. They don't even have to worry about, you don't even have to talk to parents about payments. You don't have to say, oh, hey, Miss Jones, you forgot to pay, last session or whatever the heck it is, because those are awkward conversations, and sometimes, parents do forget, or sometimes, I've ran into a couple of situations where parents are just avoiding you and not, trying to pay. They're trying to get everything for free, and when you set up your business to run that way, you're avoiding, all those little things, and it's making everything just run a lot smoother, and you never have to talk about payments, besides when they're actually signing up. That's the only time you ever talk about it. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff ever again. You can just build, like I said, build relationships with those parents. I would say that's one thing that's helped my business tremendously, because now I know how much income I'm getting in every month. I don't have to worry about people missing. I don't have to worry about if this guy shows up this day and doesn't show up the next day. I'm able to kind of see the numbers and know how much I'm expecting, every month. Another thing that I highly recommend to any trainer, any coach, to get is a platform called Hoops Institute. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Myson Jones. He's another trainer in the space, and he has built a platform where you're able to have a website, but then you're able to it's hard to explain, but you're able to run a business from that website. I'm trying to think, that's probably not the best way to explain it, but you get your website, you also get your own business phone number, you get your own business email, you get all these marketing tools, you get a whole bunch of different stuff. If you guys aren't familiar with him, look up Myson Jones and Hoops Institute on Instagram. You can find more info about it, but pretty much, you get your own business phone number, you get your own email, and from that platform, from Hoops Institute, you can send out mass text messages, you can send out mass emails. You don't have to use, like side programs like, MailChimp. If you guys are familiar with that, I used to use MailChimp in the past. I'm literally running my business from Hoops Institute, and I can literally do anything, I want from that. I don't have to go to a bunch of different, sites and do those things separately. It's all on one platform. And it has a lot more. That's only a couple of things, that it offers, but there's so many marketing tools, so many, it's like a daily schedule. You can set up your daily schedule on there, what you're going to do on there, and figure out what you're going to knock out for the day and whatnot. But if you're interested in that, go check out, Hoops Institute on Instagram. It has way more information on there, and I know Mike can explain it a lot better. I didn't even touch on, half of the things that I can do. But if you want to do this full time or you want to grow your business, you need Hoops Institute for sure.
It's awesome. Yeah, no, I second all that stuff, man. A lot of value in that, man. I appreciate you coming on. I don't know if you have anything else that you kind of want to leave with, or if that's it, but I mean, at least from my perspective, again, like a lot of value for a lot of different groups. Like I think players would take stuff from this, coaches, trainers, people who just want have a business, who want to start theirs, who want to grow. And so again, I think from that perspective, man, it's been awesome. So I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, man, I'm super thankful, for you having me, on here. One thing, I'll say to end it is always believe in yourself, man. Bet on yourself. I touched on it earlier, no matter how hard things get, never quit, man. Just keep pushing for whatever dreams, whatever goals that you have set for yourself. Go shoot for them. No matter if you succeed, okay, or you fail. keep pushing for it and never quit.
Facts, man. So again, shout out to Gabe. Follow him on Instagram at Game Time Elite Training. Is it Game Time Elite or Game Time Elite Training?
Game Time Elite Training.
Game Time Elite Training.
On all platforms.
Okay. So like I said, guys, earlier, like one of the best follows that you can have. If you're a basketball player, if you're a trainer, go check him out. And again, all you guys who are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, shout out to you guys who are listening. Drop a review on Apple Podcasts if you're listening on there. Everybody on YouTube, shout out to you guys. Drop a like, subscribe if you're new. I appreciate you guys who are listening. I'll talk to all you guys soon. Peace.